Joining us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, he's our Sixers insider, 973ESPN.com. Joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, Paul Hudrick, here on the Sports Bash. Paul, how you doing today?
I'm great, Josh. How are you, man?
Doing pretty good. So, we're kind of like, breaking down, like, what were our takeaways? What were some of the big things that we walked away from that game last night? So, right off the top, right off the very beginning, was there something that stood out to you more than anything else last night?
The defense, for me, for sure. I think that, we all thought this would be a top 5 team defensively last year, but I think this year, if they're not, it'll be criminal. Like what they have defensively, obviously, with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And then I think Tobias Harris has been an improved player on that end. I was really impressed with that one possession where he kind of, slid his feet really well and guarded Jason Tatum to end the first half. I think Danny Green is very underrated defensively. I think he's going to be a really good addition, really versatile, can guard, 1 through 3, even sometimes 4 in a pinch. And then even I think Seth Curry is a little underrated. He's undersized, and that does hurt him in certain matchups. But I think with this team, he's smart and he's willing, and those are 2 huge things when you're surrounded by other, elite defensive players. So to me, that was the biggest thing is, there's going to be nights where maybe this team won't score as much as some people would like, but defensively, I think this should be an easy top 5 defensive team.
What did you think offensively about the dribble handoffs, pick and rolls, Joel Embiid cut into the basket, Ben Simmons hitting him in stride a couple times? So overall, offensively, what did you think about the strategic side of things?
Yeah, I love the movement. I think that's the biggest, we've heard from Dr. Rivers all along during training camp, the 2 biggest things were, he talked a ton about the pick and roll and guys screening and guys moving without the ball and how, since, when you don't have a Chris Paul or a guy like that to run the show, you need that. You need movement and you need guys to, set screens for one another. I like the idea of, a guy like Seth Curry, who is a shooter, who is smaller, setting screens to open up things for other guys. I love the wrinkle of Joel Embiid, cutting to the basket. When Ben Simmons gets downhill, a lot of times you'll just see Joel Embiid spot up, and that's what he's done in the past. You saw 2 instances last night where he cut to the basket. One play got him an easy layup. The other one got him to the free throw line. So little wrinkles like that, I absolutely loved. I love to see. At times things were a little clunky. You guys were a little rusty, maybe not making shots they'd normally make. But overall, offensively, I saw a lot more encouraging signs than I did discouraging signs.
Paul, you mentioned that there were positive and negatives out there. One of the positives I took from this team last night was I felt like for as much as these guys were learning to play together for the first time, because there were moments where it looked like it was like a bunch of guys you just happened to think about basketball, decided to walk onto a court together and start playing. But there were other times where it felt like for as much as maybe Ben and Tobias were kind of still figuring things out, it was almost like it was refreshing for them to say, we actually have other guys on this team who actually can do some of the things that we do.
Right. And I think a lot of people, and I get it, people are frustrated because Ben Simmons still not shooting maybe, as much as they would like, not being as aggressive as perhaps they'd like, especially in that first half. I thought maybe he was a little tentative. But I do think it's kind of like what you said. I contribute that more to, he's got 2 brand new starters in the lineup with Seth Curry and Danny Green. That's just not, his game is not like Embiid scored because that's Embiid's game, right? Embiid's an aggressive player who looks for his own shot, who wants to score. That's not Ben, even at Ben Simmons' best, even when he is scoring, that's still not really his game. He is more a facilitator first and foremost. That's his game. He's got the vision for that. And that's something that, that's the way he is. You saw him be a lot more aggressive in the second half. But I would say overall, I thought maybe him and Tobias, and if I have like a concern or kind of a negative going forward, I do worry about Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris appearing to be more aggressive when Joel Embiid isn't in the game. I would like to see them kind of find that balance of still being aggressive while Joel Embiid is still being aggressive. So I think there's just that trio is still, you would like it to be further along, I would think, at this point, but they're not quite there yet. And I'm hoping I'm contributing it more to new guys, new offense, new coach, and all those kinks being worked out. And hopefully we see more progress, in the next preseason game and then as we go into the regular season.
What intrigued you the most out of Shake Milton's game? Because there was a lot there, whether it was that fadeaway, the step-back mid-range jumper. He was doing a lot yesterday. So out of his game, what intrigued you the most?
His confidence is just through the absolute roof right now, and I think that's a huge part of it because he's taking shots that you're kind of like, you wouldn't necessarily suspect he would have taken, last year, even when he was hot. Like the step back shot, like you referenced, that mid range where he puts it between his legs, and that's like James Harden-esque to see him do shots like that and just no hesitation, just shooting the ball at will. But I think what really impressed me the most, and maybe something that he didn't necessarily have as much, was just kind of that burst to the basket he flashed a couple times. And to me, I contribute that to the confidence. I think that the game is kind of slowed down for him, and he's not thinking maybe as much. So I think that's allowed him to just maybe play faster at a little bit of a higher level. One thing I've always been impressed with him, and I think maybe it's a little bit underrated aspect of his game, is he can finish, and he can finish with both hands. And that's something that not every guy can do. And I think he's flashed that ability the past 2 years. So if you couple that with him playing at maybe a little bit more of an accelerated rate and getting to the basket a little more, plus he's added, I think he said, 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. So he's a little stronger so he can absorb that contact at the rim as well. So I think that's the biggest thing for me that I'm looking forward to. We all knew he could shoot. We all knew he was a confident shooter. But his ability to get to the basket, get downhill fast, and finish at the rim, I'm very interested to see how he's kind of developed that aspect of his game this season.
All right, I have a two-parter. Do you think that Doc Rivers is married to Curry and Danny Green being in the starting rotation? And if not, is it possible that Shake Milton can grow and groom into maybe being a starter, if not a sixth-man?
I think Doc likes it. I wouldn't say he's married to it, but I do think he likes what he sees so far. I think he likes the idea of that starting unit with Ben and with Joel, surrounding them with the optimal shooting with Seth and with Danny. And I think he likes Shake Milton as that guy that, like, again, we talked before about, Doc Rivers having those elite kind of bench guards, whether it's Lou Williams, whether it's Jamal Crawford. So it seems to me, at least, that he's kind of grooming Shake Milton to be that guy for him. And with the way it worked last night, I think it made sense to have Shake be just the backup point guard, give him the ball, and just see where he takes it. Maybe looking to score more, certainly than a Ben Simmons as the backup point guard. So, I mean, is it possible? I mean, sure. I think Shake Milton could have, is he talented enough? Could he do it? Absolutely. But I think Doc Rivers might like him more with the ball more in his hands in the second unit, and then maybe let Ben Simmons facilitate more with that first unit.
Paul Hudrick joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure to follow on Twitter at Paul Hudrick. Also check out his coverage of the Sixers over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Paul, just to follow up on the Shake Milton stuff, it kind of feels like, and I'm just going off of this based off of Doc Rivers' history, but we saw him in Orlando. We saw him in Boston. We saw him in L.A. He always likes to have multiple guards who can do multiple things. And I have to wonder, how much of what we're seeing with Shake Milton is not just Shake Milton, but also maybe Doc looking at him and saying, I've coached guys like a Darrell Armstrong and a Lou Williams and a Jamal Crawford, and maybe he looks at Shake and says, maybe this guy can be a variation of those guys. For
sure. And Doc kind of touched on it last night. He said that he tells him in practice all the time, just be Shake. Because, Doc Rivers' impression of Shake Milton is a 39-point game in L.A. That he hung on Doc Rivers' Clippers. So Doc Rivers' impression coming in was already very strong of Shake Milton. And I think now that he's seen him in person, he's even more impressed. And I do think there's something to that. Like I keep referencing that confidence. I think that's the biggest thing I noticed from him last night. And I'm sure Doc Rivers being in his ear and telling him, hey, just be Shake and be that guy. And, in Doc's history with having guys like that, I'm sure that's done nothing but help grow Shake's confidence. And I think that's a huge part of what we saw last night and, what they're expecting him to be going forward.
Also last night, we saw the first subs coming off the bench was Shake, Furkan Korkmaz, and Dwight Howard. And I got to tell you, I thought Dwight got a little bit more playing time than I thought he was going to. But, for a preseason game, he put in some serious effort out there.
No, he was really active, and it definitely jumped out at me. And it's just crazy to me, Dwight Howard, a guy who a perennial all-star or defensive player of the year, all-NBA type player. The way he has accepted, the latter stages, starting last year in LA when he took on that backup center role and really embraced it and embraced being a mentor. And that's really what he's done so far here. And yeah, you love the activity. I loved him on the offensive glass. And I think he's just got, at this point in his career, his age, he really does have that mindset of, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to win. And that's something I think this team needs. I think this team needs, a guy, I think he's a guy with now championship experience who's played this game at the highest of levels. And to have a guy like that in the fold for Joel Embiid as a mentor, but then also when you bring him off the bench and he's giving you strong backup 5 minutes and he protects the rim and he's active on the glass. I mean, these are all really positive things. You saw the lob with him and Shake Milton on that little kind of pick and roll with Shake prodding the defense and him just throwing it up. I mean, Dwight Howard can still do those things, not to the extent, obviously, that he could before, but he is still, to me, beyond the mentoring, a very useful basketball player.
I want to get your assessment on Tyrese Maxey. A couple nice floaters, the Euro step, mix in some assists. What'd you think about him?
I mean, I love his game. I loved him at Kentucky. I still can't believe that he fell to 21 to the Sixers. I'm going to probably be saying that for his entire career at this point, it seems like, just because of what you saw. I mean, already to me, I think he's the best pure ball handler on this basketball team as a 20-year-old kid. And it's as much as that is a compliment to him, that's also slightly an indictment on the roster the Sixers have. It's just that they don't have guys that are that adept at ball handling. And to see him get downhill, to see him use ball screens so well, like you mentioned, the floater game, which he has really perfected and he's gotten really good at it. It's something that, I asked him about it last night. He said it's something that he started working on in high school because he realized I'm going to be 6'3", I'm not getting any taller, so I need to learn how to, pull up and do that and get that shot over a big. Because, look, a floater, that's an unblockable shot. And it's something that, in the NBA, when you're in a pick and roll and a big drops, you're going to have that anytime you want it. So if he can hit that at a high rate, which I believe he can, that's going to be a really effective shot for him at the NBA. And then just overall, I really do love his game. I think defensively, he's got length. He's got a solid frame. He's, again, willing. Doc Rivers has raved about his communication on that end. So overall, he's going to challenge for minutes. I'm very curious to see where he would kind of slot in. Can he play with Shake Milton in a kind of two combo guard role with those two? I'm not so sure, but Doc Rivers said he's going to fight for minutes, and I have to believe after what we saw, that's a really encouraging start.
Paul, one more before we let you go, and I always appreciate you jumping on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. What are now the next game? We have a couple days in between. Friday coming along, 6 o'clock. People here right here on 97.3 ESPN. What are you now looking for in the next game after what we saw last night?
I think kind of what we talked about off the top. I would really like to see Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, the aggressiveness they had in the second half without Joel Embiid. I'd like to maybe see more of that in the first half with Joel Embiid. I do think that a part of it is Ben Simmons just knowing, hey, I have Joel Embiid, and when in doubt, we just dump it down to Joel Embiid and let him go to work. So that, to me, is the biggest thing I'm looking at. I want to see Danny Green play a little bit more minutes. I'd like to see even more of the pick-and-roll stuff with Seth Curry and the dribble handoff stuff with Seth Curry. And then the two guys we just talked about, too. I want to see how Shake Milton carries that momentum from that first preseason game into this one. And then same with Maxey. And I would like to maybe see Maxey get more minutes. Last night it was all with all with the backups, the reserves in the fourth quarter. I'd like to see him get mixed in with some of the rotation players and see how he handles going up against, guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Victor Oladipo and see how he looks against those kind of NBA guards.
He's Paul Hudrick. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Paul Hudrick. Also check out his podcast, Coming In for a Landing. And as all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Make sure you check out all of his work over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Our Sixers Insider. Great stuff, Paul. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.